Hello everyone, and welcome to this video which is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at a lovely game between Nemorino and Koivisto, TCEC Season 22, Swiss 3. This game features something very unusual, a black win in the TCEC, and it features something even more unusual, something that you virtually never ever see in a modern Benoni. So let's have a look how all that happened. It was a great game. So d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, and now a6 was the TCEC book move. Nemorino played a4 to stop a potential b5, which basically means that we're into, we can transpose into a modern Benoni type of position, but where, white and black have played an early a6, a4. It's sort of a mixed blessing, really. It certainly cuts out some white possibilities, but in the main classical lines, it's probably a little advantage for white to have got those moves in. But actually, what happens is that Koivisto does things a little bit strangely. It just shows how engines view these modern Benoni positions quite differently to humans. So e6 was played, knight c3, and now, a human player would definitely play e takes d5 straight away in order to force c takes d5 and get this modern Benoni type structure after here. What Koivisto does is play g6. And this is really thought to be an inaccuracy from black, because after e4, d6, knight f3, e takes d5, white can now play e takes d5. And this structure is supposed to be just a very solid, safe advantage for white. White's got more space, the black piece is rather cramped, pawn on d6 is weak, and there's none of that imbalance in the modern Benoni in these type of positions where black can try and get some queenside counterplay with b5 even as a pawn sacrifice. This is rather solid and stable and just a nice advantage for white. But the engines seem to feel that, that this isn't too bad for black, and they're very, very happy to do this. Well, Koivisto played bishop g7 and now queen e2 check, which at first sight is a rather irritating move. The problem for black is that queen e7, bishop f4 is rather awkward here. There was a lovely game in one of my engine games played between Stockfish and Dragon, where takes, king d7 to protect the pawn, knight g5, hitting f7, king e7 castles, h6, knight g4, knight e8, rook d1, and you can see how much pressure black's under. The queenside pieces aren't getting developed, and that d6 pawn is really weak. Dragon did its best to sort of push back the white pieces, but they just kept on coming back. So, we've gained a little bit of time from black, a little bit of time to develop, but of course the black's kingside structure has suffered, and Stockfish played very, very nicely here, just gaining space, and then playing this lovely idea f5 and then g5. Not obvious really to play that. It's often feels like exchanging off pawns, exchanging off pieces. It could just lead to liquidation. But it was just very, very nice what Stockfish did. f6 check is a very nice move. Knight f6. We're going to have bishop takes g5 already. When you're going to lose that knight, I can tell you. So black goes king f8, and then we go bishop g5, and what you've ended up with here is a position where black's got two crucial weaknesses. Well, maybe we'll call it 3 or 4. Actually, first of all, this bishop is stuck behind the pawn on f6. This pawn on d6 is attacked by the knight on e4, which also handily defends the pawn on f6, and it has to be defended by the knight on e8. So these pieces are paralysed, which also means that the black king is paralysed. And Stockfish made a very good job of gradually encircling black and winning there. But this is rather awkward. You can see that after queen e2 check, queen e7, bishop f4, this is just rather awkward for black. What could you do? King f8 is just you can do it, but it's going to take you a little bit of time to develop your king, and you've just got basically then a bad version of this structure, which is not going to be that pleasant. In a game between Dragon and Stockfish, we got h3, h6, just queen d1. The queen's done its duty, so now we're just going to try and bring the bishop round to d3 and go castles and just leave black with a slightly longer task to get its king developed. Bishop f5, g4, queen e7, bishop e2, bishop e4, castles, takes, knight d7, rook e1, and we've got this typical modern, well, typical sort of delayed Benoni type of position where, yeah, white's got the two bishops, a bit more space, but yeah, this king is on f8, which is again just delaying the entry of black's rook into the game. So just a very nice position, and Dragon won a really nice game here against Stockfish. So pretty difficult, but Koivisto's plan, quite amazing here. I would never have guessed it. I wouldn't have thought of this. It was just king d7. King d7 in the modern Benoni. I have never ever seen a king doing this. I mean, I've very rarely seen a king moving to the queen side in these positions. The idea is clear. We're going to go rook e8, and black's just claiming that after king c7, his king is actually not too bad. I think the point is that, you know, white's played this move a4, so getting in b4, which would be the natural move to break open the queen side, is going to be very difficult. Also because there's this latent pressure of the bishop along the diagonal. So if you go b4, well, this bishop could come into play. And well, actually, somehow black's development goes very, very quickly, you know, in this position. I'm really quite amazed. So queen c2 was played by Nemorino, just to get out of the the pin, and just to, you know, prepare bishop e2 or bishop d3 and then castles. Quite natural. So what do we get now? Were there other moves that were played? Yeah, I mean, instead of queen c2, we got some games with queen d1, for example, from Stockfish and Dragon, and also even a game with queen d2 from Dragon, which is a little bit funny. But you know, it proceeded, you know, quite similar ways really. Queen d1, king c7, bishop e2, bishop f5, rook a3, just try to get the rook active like that. Queen e7, castles, and yeah, I mean, here Dragon played a very nice game, worth showing a little bit. Just see the amazing activity that black sort of develops. And one interesting part about putting the king to the queen side, I mean, it doesn't really look that safe. I don't really have that many pieces to defend it. But what it does mean is that I can do a lot on the king side. I can really just expose this king side, throw pawns forward, sacrifice them with black, and it doesn't really matter because the king's on the other side. So, for example, here after g4, rook g8, knight a4, we got h5, and Dragon's idea simply was to sacrifice this piece, take these horrific double pawns, but because the king's on c7, we've got a rook on the g file, and we're coming in with bishop e5, threatening the rather gorgeous bishop h2 and rook g1. Very, very dangerous indeed, and well, Stockfish survived, of course, but this was essentially just an equal position already. So, I mean, no, really, I was really amazed in my games how little Stockfish and Komodo Dragon managed to make of this as white. So, yeah, probably you shouldn't be too harsh on Nemo that it didn't really find any convincing way to an advantage. It just doesn't look to be that sort of position. So, king c7 played, bishop e2. Bishop d3 was played by Dragon against Stockfish. Then we got bishop g4, and then this rather unusual move, knight g1, rook e8, king f1, knight d7, h3, and then this move bishop f5 again. And again, it's this thing that with the king over on the queen side, you know, you've got this extra resource of just weakening your king side just to get counterplay. And yeah, this worked out very well. I mean, we're looking to swap off queens. This pawn on c4 is attacked. And once the queen's gone, then all these light squares are ripe for invasion by the black pieces. I mean, it's actually really good compensation. There was also one funny thing that Stockfish played h3, and after rook e8, king d1, bishop f5, takes, knight d7, king c2, and yeah, again, this is a very unusual Benoni position where both sides have put their kings artificially to c7 and c2. But again, this just turned out to be, you know, quite okay for black. Rook e1, queen d7, a little bit better for white, of course, but nothing horrific. And yeah, this king just ends up being, you know, really well placed. Hard to get at it, bizarrely enough, and leaving all the room free for kingside play. So, what did Nemorino do? Well, Nemorino played bishop e2, and we got some fairly normal development here. Knight bd7, a5, Queen e7 castles, rook a e8. I mean, you just see how easily black's pieces come into play here. Rook a3, knight e4, and this is an important move, always in the Benoni in actual fact. It opens up the long diagonal, gets rid of a knight, which also is a barrier on the long diagonal as well. And, well, getting rid of the knight makes the bishop on f5 more active, and we've also got, pressure on the e-file. Knight takes c4, bishop takes c4. This doesn't feel bad for black at all. And, yeah, I mean, the king's there on c7, but I don't really see a clear way to attack it. So, what did white do in this position? Well, Nemorino took a decent decision here, simply to play bishop e3, develop, and if black takes the b pawn on b2, then hopefully we're going to try and get some attack. Just give up a pawn in order to open a file for your pieces. But actually, Koivisto just found a very nice idea here. Took the pawn and then gave the pawn back straight away. I mean, this is very important. Getting rid of the dark square bishops, which is white's best bishop, and also freeing this c5 square for the knight. And this is a wonderful square for the knight. I mean, it's a beautiful outpost, but it also, defends b7 and a6. I mean, really, sacrifices against the king are pretty tough to achieve. And yeah, I mean, this bishop on f3, this light square bishop, is pretty poor. It doesn't really have any scope whatsoever. I mean, it's one of those positions where you look at it and you just think, well, give black a few moves, and it could be like really dangerous for white. And that's actually what happens. I mean, of course, in my engine games between Stockfish and Komodo, they anticipate the danger, and they were sort of bring the pieces back and just trying to neutralize. Nemorino does not see the danger in that same fashion, and well, what you actually see, it feels very much like a human player just out of inertia carrying on and trying to prove an advantage, and that proves to be very, very costly. So queen d2, king b8, queen b4. Yeah, I mean, both Dragon and Stockfish were playing moves like g3, h4, h6, and then rook bb1, and then trying to deal with the e file and just exchange off some pieces and hold things. And yeah, I mean, they both thought that it was a little edge for black, but nothing too horrific. But look at Nemo. I mean, Nemo keeps on playing with queen b4, rook c6, queen b6, and well, both Komodo and Stockfish are pretty unhappy when you make them play this position. Again, it looks very impressive, looks like you're achieving something, but after rook d7, just waiting, then it just turns out that white's got no way to increase pressure. d6 is beautifully defended by a rook and the queen, for example, and the knight on c5 is defending b7 and a6, so yeah, how do you get through? h3, rook d8, making things really solid. And now black starts expanding a little bit. Rook e7, we get control of the e-file. The other rook's defending d6. And yeah, if you're thinking of a plan, well, why not just move these kingside pawns forward and leave this bishop with even less scope? So rook d1 and now rook de8. Yeah, I mean, the queen and rook have retreated, so the pawn only needs to be defended by one piece, that's the queen. And notice how good the queen is. I mean, it's defending d6, attacking c4, and also stopping anything like g2 to g3. Well, white takes the opportunity to play h4, because if queen h4, then the d6 pawn is hanging. But Koivisto wasn't particularly bothered about that and just played f6. So yeah, you don't need to play g5 to g4 now to open up the king side, just g5 will be enough. So queen d2 played by Nemorino, but this is actually, again, still really difficult. The queens are not solving the essential problem, which is that white's just got no targets for its pieces, and well, you're controlling the e-file thoroughly, and now we've got ideas like rook c1 or rook a1. And just imagine, I mean, if you swapped off all the rooks, black would just play b6 and get a passed a-pawn, which is running all the way. So yeah, this position has really got the seeds of disaster, and Koivisto, handles this beautifully. Essentially, creating threats to force white to swap off more pieces. So check, takes, and now b6. We've got our passed a-pawn now, so Nemorino sort of stays in there, just checks the king back, just to try and make sure that that you're not going to be able to advance the pawn. But now rook b1, and yeah, what have we got? We've got all sorts of ideas. I mean, you know, the rook on b1 now is stopping any checks, so that makes the room free for king b6 and a5 at the very least, and that pawn's going to move on to a4, and then we can go king a5, king b4, and a3. I mean, it's pretty inevitable really what's happening. So I mean, white's really got to try and do something on the king side, but it's not easy because this knight dominates this light square bishop so well. You know, you can't go to d3, for example. So king f3, king b6, g4, that's definitely a good move. We do a little king check and check, and yeah, the idea simply is that we're stopping the pawn from coming to h5, or if you play h5, then you're going to lose a pawn. Well, it's a decent idea to try and get some freedom for the king, but here Koivisto starts playing very annoyingly, just you know, grabbing, attacking stuff and harassing stuff. So here we're harassing the bishop, and now rook c1 attacking the pawn on c4. Bishop g2, rook c3. We're looking for h3. White plays f4, and then black goes rook takes c4, and now you can't take this pawn because we'll take this one with check. It's yeah, pretty simple play there again, and then we've just played rook b4 again. We've taken control of the b file again, so the king can go back and you can go a5. I like this technique actually. I mean, lots of moves where you're sort of doing a little bit of stuff and then getting a little bit further and then regrouping and then coming back afterwards. You know, just very, very smooth, good technique there. Well, there's no point in seeing the rest of the game. Koivisto won this very comfortably, finished it off beautifully. I thought it was a stunning game. I mean, I'm just absolutely amazed by this move, king d7. You know, in a way that it doesn't lose on the spot, and actually, secondly, that it seems to be actually quite good having the king on there. This makes you, you know, you start thinking of all sorts of variations where you think, oh, could I do it? Could I try king d7 to c7? Definitely something to be tried in blitz, I think. But yeah, beautiful play. I mean, just one word of warning. There's a little game that I tweeted later that was pointed out to me by Mr. Beads, where Vagelet played king d7 in an Alekin, and that didn't work out well. So not every single opening, but this one definitely an idea worth looking at. There we are. Hope you enjoyed that. Why not give a like or a subscribe if you did? Take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, and otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching, and see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.